Hello and welcome to The Story and the Song. My name is Adri. I'm a singer-songwriter from the west coast of BC, Canada, Turtle Island. Welcome to the show. This podcast is for anybody who's in the music industry, anyone who's interested in a good story, and any aspiring singer-songwriters, performers, producers, engineers. If you are looking to get inspired, please tune in to the episodes. We are on season 2 now. So make sure to loop back to season 1. There's a lot of good combos in that one as well. And make sure to like and subscribe. We are on YouTube and Spotify. That helps this channel get out to a larger audience and helps us out, obviously, in all the ways. So please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're really enjoying one of the episodes, please leave a review or a comment. It all is very much appreciated. We have CALICO up next. So they are an Americana alternative indie folk band based here on the west coast of BC, Canada, Turtle Island. And I was able to catch up with Tony, who's the main songwriter, composer for the band, in addition to Will Lloyd, and talk about how recording their 4th studio album has been going, which is set to release in June. So make sure to take a look out for that. They do have some shows coming up as well here on the West Coast. So keep an eye out on them, find them on their socials. We talked about their album release coming up, songwriting, what's inspiring his songs, and what it's also been like navigating recording and keeping a band together when the main songwriter Tony lives on the Vancouver Island. So they've had some challenges in that sense, but they still seem to keep the band together and keep things strong. And this band is really based on friendship, as they were all friends before they got the band together, which is pretty cool. A really special bond that is inspiring the music and the energy behind this project. So it was cool to talk about all those things. And I think you guys should definitely check them out and go listen to their music. It's the perfect music for swinging in your hammock, hanging out on your patio. It is dreamy folk music, nostalgic vibes. So make sure to go check it out. And I can't wait to hear this album that they have coming up. So find them on the socials once again, and make sure to keep following them on all the channels, and enjoy this convo. Okay, here we are. Thank you so much for coming on, Tony. It's a real pleasure to sit down and chat with you again. It's been so long. You and I used to cross paths a lot in the Mudfunk days. And I feel like you were a big supporter of Mudfunk. Like, you'd come out to the shows a lot, and I felt like you were just part of the whole Mudfunk community. And
Totally.
it's just cool to now be able to like shine a light on your music now. Like, I'm super excited to like get into everything you've done in the past, 5-6 years since you
Totally.
started this project. So why don't you tell the people at home who's in Calico and how it all started?
Yeah, totally. Thanks for having me, first of all.
Of
And I
course.
do like that you bring up, I'll introduce, but I do like that you bring up the Mudfunk era and the Mudfunk days, because that was kind of like my first introduction into, because I didn't really play music back then. I was just like hanging out with you guys. It was a little bit
Yeah.
of songwriting and poetry and jamming, but hanging out with you guys at the house, watching you guys was kind of my way of becoming an artist, was by observing, and you guys in Mudfunk was something that I observed a lot of. So
Right.
it is
Yes.
cool to a lot of observation, a lot of um, hanging out and being kind of with the musicians, but not yet being a musician. So it is cool to thanks for the for saying that and that little segment at the beginning, because that is part of the story.
Yeah. And I guess before you get into answering that question as well, like, I was meaning to mention this. Like I have memories of you coming over to Will and I's place with your notebook, and you wanted Will to play guitar on your songs. And that
Yeah.
was like 2018, 2019, I think, because yeah, probably
Before.
2018 or
I
even
think
before.
I think
Was
it was
it?
even I think it was
Even
before, yeah.
before.
I think
Yeah.
it was before.
And I just remember picking up your notebook and asking if I could read some of your lyrics.
Mm.
And I just remember being so blown away. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this is so good.
Mm.
And so it's kind of like fair to say that the band like started, like, I know on your website you say that you guys started in 2020, but I feel like it kind of started there already, right? A little bit in the
Oh,
living
totally.
room, and you guys were
I
all hanging out, and
totally.
you were already starting to write songs with Will, right? So,
Oh, for sure. And we applied. I remember in like 2015 applying to some festivals as some band name, the New Millennials, or making up some name that was Chris, Will, and I. And we didn't have a bass player at the time. It was just the three of us. But so I think, and like that's three-quarters of Calico. And I think that was literally in 2015 or 2016. Because one of the singles in our third album was written at your guys' old place. That just like was one of those poems that kind of came out, turned into a song. Will played on it, and then 8 years later is when we looked back into kind of the archives of us playing together and pulled out music from back then. So it's cool to, and we'll get into the journey, but it's definitely started before 2020 for sure.
right. Which song is that? That,
It's called Ease.
oh,
And
okay.
you actually there is a I'll send it to you actually. There is like a rough kind of garage rock kind of, or grungy recording of us playing that song and you singing backup vocals on it.
No way.
And
Oh my
and
God.
it's yeah,
That's funny
which
because I
is
was thinking to myself, I'm like, I think I remember you asking me to sing on something, but I was like, did I actually do that? Like,
oh yeah.
okay, so I
Yeah,
did.
you did.
Wow.
You
I
did.
can't
You did.
remember.
And this was like, that was probably 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
like you look at, time is a weird thing, but that was a long time ago. And so
Wow.
but I can
That's
I'll jump
cool.
into your question of
Yeah.
of um who's in the band, how the band started. Um I mean, I'm Tony obviously, and rhythm guitar player, singer, songwriter. Will Lloyd plays electric lead guitar. Chris Kudo is a drummer, percussionist, and co-founder of the project along with myself. And then Jean-Say Leduge, who's the bass player of Victoria or Vancouver, who plays with
Yes.
everyone, is the bass player of the group.
Yeah.
Which I could say about Chris too, because those two guys are probably in 25 bands together
Mm-hmm.
around the city.
Mm-hmm.
But we really, I mean, we say it on the website, but it is kind of one of those stories that manifested and came out of the pandemic, in the sense that we were kind of, like most of us, stuck in this limbo in our life, physically stuck in our houses, and I think a lot of us, I definitely like was longing for personal connection and longing for creative outlet. And I had, like you'd mentioned from the lyric books, I had like so many songs that I'd written over the years. And I had a call with Chris one day and I was like, this is the time that we can start a band. We talked about it for years, really starting a group together. And the world slowed down, and those guys weren't gigging at the same rate that they normally were. And so it opened up this door and this window to collaborate over Zoom, much like we are
Okay.
right now,
Yeah.
but bring forth song ideas um, and start talking about the songs, and then I would record my parts and we would send them via the interweb, and everyone would record their parts. So the first, Calico really started as like a band from our own respective living rooms,
Right. Interesting.
which is a super interesting, bizarre way to start.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And then the first time we ever played live, we needed to do a recording of our album before we released the album. We wanted to have, something that showed us playing together. And this was during the pandemic when you could finally kind of get together. And so we'd
Hmm.
never played live together. And we rented a recording studio here in Victoria and had some friends there to film it. And we played each song maybe one or two times and then filmed it. And that was the first time we'd ever played live. And we recorded and made like a in studio kind of live
Hmm.
recorded album of our music. And from then, from there, kind of things kind of have slowly been growing since. But we really, that's kind of how we started. It was just like wanting some connection, and it's like the silver lining, at least it personally, the silver lining of the pandemic for me was like I finally got to start a band with friends,
Yeah.
and like explore that artistic side of myself that I've never really kind of had the opportunity to do.
Right.
So
Amazing. So, did you guys set out to do an album, or because you've released 8 singles uh, at first,
yeah,
and
we
then
released, yeah, totally. Oh, sorry, go for it.
no, go for it.
We we had I had I think 15 songs that um that I brought forward initially, and I was like, let's drop a 15 song record. And and Stephanie, our producer, was like, nah, maybe, uh Stephanie Pockets,
Mm-hmm.
who you had a yeah,
Yes.
who
Yes. She's
you've
been on the show.
yes, totally.
Yeah.
And so she was like, well, maybe we do a 8 song record first and then split it up and then do a 7 song record, after that. And so the first album was 8 songs, and it kind of came from this like collection of music that I'd written over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was so much more of it that, then we got a grant from Creative BC for a third record, and then some of those songs came from way back in the day, and one of those songs was the one that we were mentioning earlier in the podcast that you sang on, um,
Right.
called Ease. So, but it's been a wild ride. I mean, it's been a weird project because we don't even live in the same city. I live in Victoria, the guys live in Vancouver,
Right.
and I think it's unique in that respect. When we get
Yes.
together, this kind of high pressure, you do one rehearsal, and then we play a show the next day. And
Right.
so it's that's kind of always how it's been. There's never been like oh hey, like you want to come over, like let's do our weekly, like you guys used to do
Right.
at the house, where
Yeah.
you got your jams, you got your weekly rehearsals, everyone comes over.
Mm-hmm.
Calico has not had, the luxury of that, but also, you know, we wouldn't be a thing if it wasn't for these other circumstances that happened,
Yeah.
So um wild ride for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And here you are, you're about to release your fourth album, which is so exciting. I can't wait to
Totally.
dive into that. Um, so, um, you write all the songs in the band, right? Like you're the main lyricist.
Yeah, I write the lyrics. Um and then Will writes, there were a couple songs on the third album, Northern Girl, that Will and I co-wrote. And then
Okay.
on this, which was cool. And
Yeah.
then on the fourth album, there's more of a kind of a split co-writing that we did where um, the two he came out to Victoria, and we wrote some songs. Will and I have a very interesting, and he would say this, I'm sure, if he was on the call, but like we have a very interesting songwriting relationship where he came out, we didn't really have any plans. He came out here, we had two like 3 to 4 hour songwriting sessions, and from it came like probably 8 or 9 songs, and some of them were kind of full tracks after the first take that were
Mm.
just recorded on the fly that never changed. lyrically too, because like how I started writing and singing music was kind of like free versing. I
Yeah.
was like,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it wouldn't make sense. Something they wouldn't be words, and then you go back on the recording, and which a lot of musicians do, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, that's a cool sound. Like, let's try and put a word to it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more co-writing on the next album, which is cool because we have very different styles um, of songwriting, and I think it's also what makes the sound of Calico kind of unique because everyone comes from a pretty diverse musical background that's in the
Yes.
group.
Yeah.
Um, so
Absolutely. And, it was so much fun to just do a deep dive into all of your music, because obviously I've listened to like a couple of the songs when
mm.
they first came out, but I just like listened to all of it. And it was
Oh,
just so
cool.
cool to like just hear like old friends make music
Mm.
together. Like that was just such a cool experience for me. And like the songs are so well done, and there's like the way that your guys' sounds come together is just like so perfect. Like it just couldn't,
Thanks.
you guys really nailed in that sound. And your lyrics are just, I mean, like I said from the get-go when you came over to our place to record, like that was the one thing that stood out to me when I read your lyrics at first, is how poetic they are.
Mm.
And they're almost like a little bit elusive as well. Like I'm almost just like, what is this song about? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh, yeah.
But I can't like it, but it works, like it's one of those, like it just reminded me of like Father John Misty a little bit, where I'm like,
Mhm.
what is he talking
Yeah.
about? But I'm like, I don't care, because like the
Yeah.
music, the
Yeah.
music like carries it. And
Mhm.
that was also the feeling I got as I was listening to
Mm.
all of the albums and the singles. Like I felt like I could take like a nap.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
it was
no,
just like really,
that's a compliment.
yeah, like
I
it
love
was
it. Yeah.
so like relaxing and soothing to listen
Mm.
to.
Cool.
That's just such a vibe. That's such a vibe in your guys' music. Like I could just, picture myself at a festival, like listening to you guys and just like, laying back on the ground and just like enjoying your guys' music. I was getting like visuals
Mm.
of that, like, or, being in a hammock or something, just relaxing on a sunny day and
That's
like
awesome.
listening to your songs. So, um, I didn't know that Stephanie has been with you guys like from the beginning. So I was gonna ask like
Yeah.
so she's
All four.
all of
Yeah.
them, really?
All four albums. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
She is the up until this point the producer of Calico.
Wow.
Um,
Okay, I didn't know
mm,
that. I thought that she was
yeah.
just working on like the most recent album and that
No,
was
she
that.
did.
So
No, we've
that's
done,
cool.
yeah. So
That's cool
like
to
the
know.
sound, yeah, it's I mean she's very much been a part of kind of a part of it from the beginning, which has been great because it's a there's a team and a community. I think like when I started the project, what was so important for me was like it wasn't just playing music, it was playing music with people that I love and people that I care about,
Yeah.
which the people in and which I know you can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something, what you were just sharing about. I describe the music as kind of like road trip music. It's like
Yes.
where you just kind of you put it
Mm-hmm.
on and you just kind of go.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you don't know where you're going. You just like you go because that's
Yeah.
it is, some of the songs that's what it does to me. It's like as the songwriter of it, it's like, yeah, they don't always make sense. And it's funny when you were talking about songwriting, we all have our own relationship with songwriting. Those of us songwriters that write music,
Mm-hmm.
it's sometimes it's clear, makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not. It's elusive and
Yeah.
it like almost unravels over time,
Mm-hmm.
which I find really
Mm-hmm.
profound about songwriting for me at least is that like a lot of the music that and the songs that I've written, sometimes when I write them, I have no effing idea what it's about. Like no idea. And it just kind of pours out of me. And that's the beauty of poetry, I think, a lot of times. Like
Yeah.
because that's how I started off, was just poetry, poetry, writing poems, and sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't. But if they evoke a feeling, then they're doing something, you know,
Mm-hmm.
in the listener, but also in the creator, in the person that's making the music. And going back to that first point is the hope here, and I've always had this, and you shared this in kind of your analysis of the music, is that like it is meant to be feel good music, but it's also made by friends.
Yeah.
And it's made by people that have known each other for so long, and people that really have a deep love and connection with each other. And like I think, and I'm biased obviously, but I feel that in the music. And you
Yes.
know us, so it's like,
Yeah.
and when I was listening to you, I was like, you get it. Like you
Mm-hmm.
understand that is that is what the music is. That is what the project is. It's a community. It's supposed to evoke feelings of memories and nostalgia and love, and kind of take you to a place.
I love
You know,
that. I love the way you describe that. Yes, 100%. And because you and Chris have, like, how long have you and Chris been friends?
Chris and I
Because,
met like 16 years ago, probably. Like I was 18. He's a little older than me. I was 18. I was going to the University of British Columbia, and we met at, do you remember the Sasquatch Music Festival um, down in Washington State? It was this big festival at the Gorge, and it was called
oh,
Sasquatch. I think that's,
okay.
maybe I'm getting the name wrong. I feel like that was the name of it, but it was a big festival down at the
Okay.
Gorge,
Mm-hmm.
and that was where we met. We met
Oh,
like, you know, being delinquent, kids.
yeah.
I had like a faux hawk and like 18 necklaces on. There's one photo that's proof of it. His hair is like up the wazoo. He's got the fro fully picked. And so we've been friends. And the relationship with Chris is fun, as like founding the project with him, because Chris was always kind of like, I always saw Chris as like my older brother, and he kind of knows,
Yeah.
we've talked about that, because
Mm-hmm.
when I didn't play, I would come and just hang out with him. I would just go to his shows, and he would,
Yeah.
he put me as a plus one, and I just kind of
Yeah.
hang around town. This was well before Mudfunk too. I'd just go around and observe musicians, and kind of see that through Chris's life. So he brought me up into kind of the music scene.
Interesting. So you obviously probably went to a lot of shows just on your own, it sounds like.
Oh
But
yeah, for
Chris
sure.
really kind of like gave you more of like a in like entrenched view, I guess you could say, of the music industry and being a player. And because had you hung out with many musicians before that, or
Um, I have like a family connection to the Black Crows, which is like a huge band. Will's,
oh yes,
famous,
right,
or Will's favorite, and that's where a lot of his guitar playing is based off of Rich Robinson, the guitarist of the Black Crows. But so I grew up.
right,
My cousin was married to, or is married to Rich Robinson, who's the lead guitar player of the Black Crows, who are a huge rock band. And so I
right.
grew up. I grew up going to like those shows, but that was, I mean, that was like levels and levels above. That was like,
Yeah, yeah.
I
Wow.
mean, it was cool, but it was an opening into what the life of a rock star looks like. So I
Yes.
think it was, and I'm not a rock star, but I like had this very intimate lens into what that was like. And then, but I would attribute it, I wouldn't attribute my interest in the music world to that. I would attribute it to my friendship with Chris, for sure, because that was like my my intimate lens into what this world was like, that I was always fascinated by, but wasn't in. And it's a hard world to break into when you don't have a name for yourself, like in anything. But people,
Mm-hmm.
I always say, like, when before I was a musician, and before I people knew me as a songwriter, and people are starting to get to know me still now as a songwriter, but before then I was treated a lot differently in the music scenes than I am now, as like someone who, has a bit more of a track record and has, albums that are released. And I always found that really interesting. I was like curious. I was young. I wanted to be there, but I wasn't like cool because I wasn't yet a musician. And
Right.
over the years, I mean, I think when you're a musician, you're always a musician. So I was. That
Yeah.
that's part of your soul.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I wasn't, it wasn't public yet. It was personal.
Right.
Um, and so, but the introduction into the music world definitely came through Chris.
Okay.
Um, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. I mean, Chris plays in some pretty awesome bands, so
Yeah, totally.
I bet you saw some really good music. It's- so when did you start writing then? Like writing poetry? How far back does that go?
I think I like really, oh, I mean, I wrote poetry when I was like a kid. I would like put words together and it was kind of the same, it's funny, like my moms will come and visit and sometimes they'll bring like, old school work or something. Especially now because I have kids, they want to bring like, old Tony things. This is what your dad, drew when he was your age. And they'll
Right.
bring like, school report card type stuff from when I was like young, like grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, and in them there's like these writings of mine, terrible handwriting, but like it's this like beginning when I read it, I'm like, oh, there's this beginning of this like kind of train of consciousness, just like not fully spaced out, but almost this like kind of weird, this like spiritual writing where it's like
Okay.
I'm putting words together that maybe don't necessarily mean anything and so it started when I was like a young buck, like a
Hmm.
very young little guy.
Cool. That's awesome.
But that was poetry. The songs came much later.
Right.
Like the actual poems that I turned into songs in my earlier 20s was when I bought like, or I had some gifts that were like journals because family and friends knew I liked writing poetry and then I would just fill them up. And the quick little story here because I'll
Yes,
share this
please.
with
I
you.
want the stories.
But the first I had gone to a fundraiser um, with Chris and Lily and some old friends um, from Vancouver, and there was kind of you could there was a fundraiser, so you'd put money down and you could win like a raffle type thing, and I
Yeah.
put one down for a songwriting two songwriting sessions with David Beckingham, who is the guitar player for what is the name of that band? It's
Hey
that
Ocean, I
Hey
think.
Ocean,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm like my
It's okay.
mind. So the guitar player for Hey Ocean, which still is, but at the time was a big
Yeah.
Vancouver-based band. So I ended up getting those two songwriting sessions with David and went to his house and brought my poetry book. And the first song I ever wrote was a song called Hold Your Head Up, which is off of the first album. And it's a song that David and I wrote together. He did the guitar part for, and I had just my book of poetry, and he started playing, and I just picked a poem, and then I sang the poem to what he was playing.
Cool.
Um,
Nice.
and that song is one of my favorite Calico songs, and it's the first song I ever wrote. I mean, back then it wasn't a Calico song; it was just the first song I ever wrote.
Yeah.
Um,
It's an
because that
awesome
was my
song.
early. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, but just kind of funky stuff like that. Just like life coincidence type stuff. You
Yeah.
put yourself in positions and situations, and then you meet people and like see what happens.
I love it. Yes, totally. Just go with the flow.
Go with the
Yeah,
flow.
and like your writing does have like I'm when you mentioned when you were a kid, it kind of has this like spiritual sense to it, and um, that is what I hear in your songs. Like it feels very like stream of consciousness writing. Do you feel like when you sit down to write, like is that kind of like your process? Like do you would you call it like, do you know, have you heard of stream of consciousness writing?
Oh yeah, it's
Oh,
totally.
okay.
I think
Okay.
I think earlier I called it train of consciousness, and I'm like, nah. This is
Oh.
the problem with having so many kids. Is I'm like, uh-oh, it's 8:45. My mind's been my mind is melting.
Yeah.
So pardon me to. Sorry
Yeah.
for people who are listening to your podcast and they're like, oh, this dude's out of it. But yes, it is. There is a bit of that. I was also going to say that a lot of my writing stems from emotion that I then convert into words.
Mm,
And it probably sounds a bit weird, but like there is this stream of consciousness writing. There's also poems and songs that I've written that are very directly related to events that have happened in my life
okay.
and events that usually bring about a very powerful emotional feeling and like, you know, breakups or death. Um,
Right.
Later in life, birth, you know, when my wife gave birth to our daughters um and so I'm not the type of person that can like sit down and write a song and just like try and feel something. It has to be a feeling, and that feeling can come like if I'm driving a car or if I'm like walking somewhere or if I'm on a phone call. And if I like, as a songwriter, now that I've learned more about how I write, when I feel whatever that is, that's when I have to like step aside and be like, okay, I'm gonna write a song right now. And oftentimes those songs will come out of me in like a very, very quick period of time, like,
Okay. Yep.
you know, a few minutes.
Yep.
And
Amazing.
that's kind of how the songwriting has always been for me. And but it is like so connected to emotion, like inside of me, like big, big emotion and feelings,
Mm,
which I feel like I always had. And you know, the world's a weird place, and it can be hard to channel emotion
mm-hmm.
and how you feel and find a place to put that. And
Mm-hmm.
so as I got older and finally had songwriting, that was the place where I could put these feelings that otherwise I felt judged for or
Mm,
whatever it was that
mm-hmm.
I didn't feel comfortable expressing because I knew that the reactions, you know, based off previous experiences, I knew that they wouldn't be supportive or loving or good. And
Right.
so I started to, you know, that it became like a coping kind of mechanism, an outlet.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that this the only safe place to talk about how you're feeling and express yourself kind of thing.
Totally. Totally.
Amazing. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because as I was listening back, you know, and I was saying how your lyrics can be elusive, like I was wanting to ask you about like if there were like certain stories attached to these songs. So that's cool. That there is kind of like a feeling behind all of them. And I mean, of course there is because you know, as I said, it's like very relaxing and soothing to listen to your
Mm.
music. So those feelings are definitely coming through in this really like poetic way. So cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for letting me spiel. I'm like, I
Yeah,
guess that's what a podcast is you talk, but
yeah, yeah,
it's cool. It's fun
exactly.
to talk.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Um, I also noticed that you guys had some like female vocalists on some of your recordings. You have Leo D.E. Johnson on your song Ease, who is just local
Yeah.
legend. I
Local
remember
legend.
looking up to them like when I first moved here and I saw
Yeah.
them singing on the corner of the street and I was like, wow, like who is
Yeah.
that?
Totally.
So that's so awesome that they are on that song, Ease. Um, who else? Who else? Because I heard maybe like
Larissa,
Larissa. Yeah.
Larissa,
Yeah.
um, you know, good old Mudfunk backup singer.
Yeah.
And then Kellen, my wife, is on like sings. She does have a great voice. She wouldn't call herself a singer, but she sings on the back. She's a backup singer on a few of the first songs in the first album.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so those three. But Leo, like the old soul rebel days, because like
Yeah.
Leo was part of that epic band, Old Soul
Yeah.
Rebel, that I think they've done a couple shows in the past couple years, maybe where they've come back together. But I remember seeing them, and those two were just like powerhouses, just so incredible voices. And so when Steph was like, I'm gonna reach out to Leo and see if they're down, I was like, they're not gonna be down to play with us. There's no way. That was like way above our league. What do you mean? And then Leo was down, and I was like, oh, sweet.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
That's awesome.
but and then Chris does a lot of the harmonies. So sometimes like
Right.
higher stuff might even be Chris Kudo.
Yes.
So
I think I did hear that
um,
in there as well. Chris's
yeah, so
voice.
you can hear his voice. I think there is hope now that we're like getting booked a little bit more and starting to play more, that we'll grow out the sound and kind of add pieces and um, add some keys and maybe
Yes.
get a backup singer and stuff.
Right.
Um, Most of our live shows to date have been just four players, but we're finally getting like hearing back from some festivals that we've applied
Amazing.
to for 6 straight years, but now it's like,
Seriously?
yeah,
Oh,
it's crazy how that, you just stay persistent, I guess is like the lesson there. Is just
yes.
keep. Last year we got hit up by one festival in Washington State, and we went and played that. It was our first US show in Port Angeles, just down across the strait from Victoria. But this year we've gotten like four or five offers. We can't. There's one that I think we've had to turn down because it's too far. But it's been cool to like
Yeah.
slowly be. It's like, okay, cool. Like people maybe are feeling what we're trying to do, you
Absolutely.
know,
Absolutely.
which takes time.
Yes. It
Takes a
does.
lot of time.
Yes. Well, and you've been releasing music consistently. I was actually going to ask you about that. Like what has that are you how are you with releasing music? Is that like an easy process for you? Like does it feel like it flows? Like have there been any kind of like bumps along the road where you're feeling nervous about it or like and especially as someone who, you know, was you're just kind of coming to terms with the fact that you're
Mhm.
a songwriter and an
Yeah.
artist and you're stepping into this identity like how has that been to just keep because you've been pumping them out. I mean, your fourth album now. Like it's
Yeah,
amazing.
totally.
It's good.
Releasing music I find incredibly challenging. And like
Okay.
it's challenging because it's not just the music that you're releasing, you're building a brand behind that music. And that
Right.
brand has to be expressed and shown and sold, so to speak. And that is something that we do nowadays, specifically through social media. And social media is something many independent artists struggle with for sure. I was always very resistant to promotion of music and being actively just active on social media. And you have to do that through release cycles. You have to do that regularly when you're posting just to show that you play music and show your face. But yeah, I mean, I find releasing music to be so multifaceted, and I am a songwriter and a musician, but I'm not a music business professional,
Mm-hmm.
And like
Yeah.
that is something that I'm sure most of us can relate to when you're releasing music. If you don't have a team behind you, you're doing everything yourself and you're doing all the parts and all
Yeah.
the pieces. And there's so many moving parts to being a musician and releasing music. And you're just kind of learning on the fly,
Yep.
and you're trying to not get ripped off and scammed. We worked with like a publicist, kind of a PR group. We've worked on with the first three albums. It was like, hey, the first one was definitely a scam. It was like, they wouldn't call themselves a scam, but it was like, hey, we're going to help you get all this exposure. We're going to help you get, bunch of reviews or can get on playlists and you do that and then you're like, oh shoot, that was a decent amount of money that we put towards something that didn't really materialize,
Mm.
not getting on radio, not getting on, But the thing is like you have to invest in your marketing as a musician if you want your music to do anything and be heard. there there's a financial expense to that, and that's
Yeah.
obviously what's challenging. It's like
Yeah.
as independent artists, you're not making that much money, and but then you're required to pump money in order to promote it and market it. And so I find it really challenging.
Yeah.
I love doing it and I love making music, but it's not natural. I don't find it natural for me to
Like the
release.
business side of it
Not
anyways.
yeah, the business side for sure.
What about like sharing your art, like your works, like with people? How does that feel for you? Does that
That's a good question. It took me a long time. And you do you mean in general
Yeah,
or
I mean it's
through
like a
certain platforms?
I feel like it's like pretty vulnerable to release songs because I mean you're,
Oh yeah.
sharing a piece of your heart with everybody and so at least, you know, yeah, I think that sometimes that can feel a little bit scary to
Oh,
like know that everybody is going to listen to it and judge it and have a opinion about it and have a thought about it. Like, do you ever experience any of those feelings when you're,
all the time. Oh
yeah,
yeah, all the time.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just needing some clarification on what avenue you were talking about with
Oh,
that, but
yeah, yeah.
100%. I mean,
More
I
the
think
internal. Yeah.
totally. There is, I mean, songwriting and releasing of music or sharing of your artistic craft or whatever it is so personal and it's
Mm-hmm.
so vulnerable. And there's
Mm-hmm.
something about songwriting specifically because it's so unique to you and it's words that share stories of your life and it can be difficult. It took me a long time to, and I'm not by any means fully comfortable with it, but it took me a long time to even get like somewhat comfortable with the idea of releasing my music and not caring how it was received and getting feedback that was negative and having that affect me in a negative way. I had
Mm-hmm.
to like grapple with those things. We've released enough music now that and if we've worked with some publicists, especially for the second and third albums. This really dope woman and her company's named Nice Marmot, and they're out of the interior. But we would get feedback that was like really negative. Be like, I like the drums, vocalist, not digging the sound of
Mm.
whatever.
Oh,
And
that's always hard to hear.
it's hard to hear. And
Yeah.
like I think as a musician, like one of the biggest lessons I've had. I mean, people always say, you get knocked down, you get right back up. With music, I have been rejected more in my life with music than I have with anything else. Anything else. Like the level of rejection is like 99%. And then I had to learn to really be grateful for the 1% and see those wins as like things that were signs to continue releasing music and being authentic
Mm-hmm.
and sharing that side of myself because there's an authenticity, that we haven't discussed yet, but there's an authenticity to music and songwriting and the showing of it, how you want to be perceived. That's really important to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I want to be authentic and I might not be the best performer or most animated person on stage, but and when I'm filming a reel, I might not, maybe it's not perfect, but I want to be me,
Yes.
and I want that to come out in the music, and I want that to be when I'm writing music, I want it to be a representation and a reflection of who I am, and that is challenging because you're
Yes.
putting yourself out there for people to criticize
Yeah.
and critique and judge or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But and I mean you know, there's so much noise out there in the music industry as well, and of course we compare ourselves and that can happen as well. Like and I can even think of when I left Mudfunk. I was actually thinking about that the other day, how mm, like now that I'm coming back into performing and writing and releasing
Mm,
music and recording and
sweet.
stuff, and having had that like break of time, away from it and now coming back into it, I was thinking about how much I was trying to be like other people in
Mm-hmm.
my when I left Mud Funk and I started my solo project. I felt like I was trying to be like other people and not myself. And now this time around, I feel so much more rooted in my authenticity and and I feel like the audience when they hear my songs like I'm getting such different feedback
Mm-hmm.
now because I feel like these are the most vulnerable songs I've written ever. And so and it's also the most like that's why I feel like, having going out and performing has been like nerve-wracking for me
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like, "Oh God, I got to share my heart now."
Yeah.
Before it was like really closed and now it's
Yeah.
open and
Yeah.
it's like scary. Um but I also, as you say, like being grateful for those little pieces of good feedback that you get and the things that you know that you're doing right. It's like keeping focused on those things has really helped like move the needle forward and kind of move through the fear because I think we all experience that on some level when we're going after something that's like new and
Mm-hmm.
um, you know uncharted territory, I guess.
Totally.
So
Don't you find too that like the feedback that you just were addressing, like when you're sharing something that's so vulnerable to you and you get really authentic feedback that is good and there's a beauty to that and it hits
yes,
differently. Like it
totally.
you it's kind of like this like, oh, you see me. Like you
Yes.
see, and there's, that can be one person, it could be 20, it could be 1,000. When you feel seen, there's something incredibly profound about that. And
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm a big advocate for mental health and I've worked in Victoria various jobs as a youth counselor with youth and like you see so much that people just don't, and I feel it too and I relate to it, that you don't feel seen oftentimes
Mm-hmm.
and heard.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do, it's like there you sit with that in the present moment. You sit with that sometimes and it's just like incredibly profound to feel that. And art and music, it lends itself to that. It creates an opportunity for that as the person sharing it because then you're kind of putting it out there. You're like, "Hey, look, this is me."
Mm-hmm.
And then if someone's connected and feels that, they bring that back to you. And it's this connection that you've instigated, but you've created an opportunity for that person to then
Mm-hmm.
have an emotional feeling and a reaction to something that, the music that you've made and the lyrics that you've written. And that is something and I'm still slowly kind of coming up in my musical journey, but that's something that I always sit back on and I'm like, wow, like that's so cool. Like that is such a special thing to have with another person.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you leave the show that night and you're like, hey, like I feel there's a high that you feel. And I know as an artist, I'm sure you felt that several times where you leave and you have this incredible high that is just like hard to explain.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from playing, but then it also comes from feeling a sense of connection to the people you're playing, the audience you're playing for, what you're hearing afterwards. And I think a lot of that, if done the proper way, comes from the beginning, which is being a authentic, vulnerable, expressive person and performer and artist. And if it
Mm-hmm.
starts there, like those are my favorite artists. The ones that you're
Yes.
like, this is you. You're just being you,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that because that's so true. And um yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like recently when I get that feeling that you're talking about like that high, it almost it's like really awesome. I'm like, "Oh my
Mhm.
God, this is so cool." Like someone connected to my song and, I'm getting this feedback that's really nice. But then it also is like, "Oh my gosh, there's like a responsibility that comes
Yeah.
with it as well." Like that
Yeah.
that I like also it takes time to like integrate and
Yeah.
but it helps. It's like all part of the puzzle. It like helps me believe in myself. And I'm always so thankful for those people that come up to me and
Totally.
share that
Totally.
something impacted them, because I'm like, oh, okay. It's like like you say, it's like those signposts that you're trying to follow along the journey of like, okay, I'm on the right path. I'm
Totally.
doing the right thing, you know?
Totally. But even I would say too, like like even what you've created with the podcast is like it's so cool because you're creating a space for us artists to share these things with each other, and which is another
Mm-hmm.
profound thing,
Thank you.
to be able to do is talk about these experiences and talk about our journeys and we as artists don't always have spaces to do that. You put your heart so much your heart and soul into your work, and whether it's off the side of your desk or whether it's so to speak, or whether it's your full-time thing, it's like always fully a part of you. And there's been various times of Calico where I have done it like off the side of my desk. I've been going to school and I've been working and I've been parenting, but it is still like 100% an extension of who I am, because how can you be inauthentic in that? I mean, you could be if you're being performative, but I really strive to not be that. And so like having these spaces to talk about it is so special because
Mm-hmm.
and there should be more of them, I think, also, but like because it's space for us to share our stories, and then people relate, like, some of the podcasts that I've watched that you've done where I'm like, even watching Steph's, and I listened to that while driving. I didn't watch the YouTube clip, but I just listened to it. And even just listening to it, I've worked with Steph now for like 5 or 6 years, and most of those stories I'd never heard of. Most of those artists that she's working with, I don't know anything about. So I like
Mm,
left the podcast, checked out a Missy D song. I'm just
nice.
like, and it's like that to me is what it's all about, is community. And I think in a lot of ways in the world we've lost that. So it's like being artists and having art, that's like the ultimate connector. You know, it's
Yes.
like one of the things we all in this world can relate to is like the beauty of music and sound,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of your political beliefs, regardless
Yeah.
of your background and your skin color or whatever, all these things that people will fight about for eternity. It's like you got some groove and rhythm, you got something that like sits with you, a song that really connects with you. There we go. We all got that in common,
Yeah,
you know. Now
absolutely.
I'm just like that's like now I'm just woo, here we go. But
I love it. No, thank you for sharing all of that. Thank you for saying that about the podcast, and just sharing your
yeah,
reflections on
right.
that, because yeah, the conversations have been so amazing to have and have given me so much. And I'm just so grateful when someone is like willing to come on and
Mm,
chat.
totally.
Because yeah, that word community has come up over and over and over again throughout the podcast. And yeah, I think with the world like being on fire right now, I think that is what we need to do, is like huddle into our communities and lift each other up in whatever way we can, and witness each other, and you know, create energy that is more positive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, no, thanks for tuning into that. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
That was so
totally.
cool.
Totally.
Um uh so back to your albums. So the first two albums, I felt like, where were those recorded?
Those were the ones that were recorded like from our homes. Like
Okay.
we all had our own like individual recording equipment, and then we recorded our parts and then sent it all to Steph, and
Okay.
Steph then mixed it and we sent it off to the guy who mastered it. And so it was like the recording studios were just like our living rooms. You just had to have good enough recording equipment, and I
Right.
would lay down, rhythm guitar and lyrics, the on a click track, and then send it out to Chris, who would lay down percussion, and then John Say, who would lay down bass, and then Will would finish it off with guitar. And it was like this really interesting. I do think I've always thought with those two albums, one day it'd be fun to like re-record them together in a space,
Mm,
like in an actual studio.
right.
Um,
Right.
just because I feel like it would just be cool one day, like if we ever got to that point. But I mean, I have like heard people say that, when I share that story, it's not like an obvious thing that these were songs that were recorded not in
No.
the same room.
No, definitely not. But sonically, like the first two albums like have a certain sound to it, and then the
Yeah.
third one, Northern Girl, that album sonically that album stands out. Like the
Yeah.
quality of the sound is like really good, and I was like I wondered uh where you
Yeah.
guys what was the difference between all of that because Northern Girl is like it really stands out. Like not
I'm
only
glad
just
you.
like just the different like the percussive elements that you guys
Mhm.
brought in there that Chris added, and I'm assuming that was Chris that
Yeah.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
doing all the percussive things. Yeah, that album was really stood out to me in a lot
Cool.
of ways.
Yeah,
W-
that's cool that you can hear that. The third album, Northern Girl. I mean, first of all, I think it's like an evolution of the sound, which I've always thought, it's a good thing if like from each album to the next, there's something like a different feeling that's evoked or something
Mhm.
positive that's brought forward, or it sounds crisper or tighter
Mhm.
or more evolved.
Mhm.
Northern Girl is kind of that um, in relation to the first two albums. And we were playing the music together in studios, so it's different. You have that like
Mm.
that camaraderie through the playing, but then you also have like that connection you're feeling when you're playing together that you don't get when you're playing just in your room.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's just different.
Yeah.
I think the fourth album we're all stoked on because I think the fourth album is like is even more of an evolution than Northern Girl, which is like what you want, but the production quality is better. It's the songs are tighter. The songwriting gets better over the years. It just which is like something that, as the longer you do stuff, like even with the songwriting, it's like it makes a bit more sense now. Like I understand my style a bit more, like what I do, and then as a group, we jive off each other in a different way and more
Yeah.
cohesively, you know.
Mhm.
Um,
Amazing.
so it'll be. I'm excited to start releasing
I
some of those tracks.
I can't wait. I can't wait. How many songs are on there?
It's 10 song, 10,
It's
10
10.
song album.
Okay.
And we had to like cut some back because we got another grant. We've been like so fortunate to get two Creative BC grants,
That's
um,
awesome.
which has been so cool. And it's such a
Yeah.
competitive process. And that's another thing. Speaking of doing all the things, the first one we got a grant writer. The next one that we got, I actually wrote the grant for it, and we got the grant. And like grant writing is a whole nother. I mean, that's a whole nother topic, but
Oh,
so difficult.
yeah.
It's like, you
So
can't bring any
exhausting.
emotion into that. Yeah, it's so
Nope.
exhausting. There's no emotion, but
Yeah.
but we got a grant for the fourth album, and that's been awesome, and that allowed us to do more than we probably would have, but we had to. Albums are so expensive to make. I think that now
Yes.
I'm going back to my point. So even with the grant, it was like we had to cut back some songs. Maybe it would have been 12 songs, but it's the longest Calico album yet. And I think it has a flow to it, and it's special. It's definitely like I'm excited to just share it because it's like we've worked like over almost a year on that album,
Okay.
um, off and on, and
Yeah.
it's like it's cool to have something that you're proud of that you're just kind of sitting on. And you're like, okay, but we want to release it right. Going back to what you were saying earlier about like releasing music, and it's like it's our strongest body of work, and we want to make sure that we do it justice
Mm-hmm.
and have a good plan in place and a good release strategy, and so we'll start releasing it, I think, when we feel comfortable that
Mm-hmm.
we're there. With the
Mm-hmm.
first three albums, it was kind of there was so much music to pump out, and it was just kind of like release, release, release. But
Yeah.
there's science to it, and there's a whole world there. So this year it'll be coming out for sure. Um,
Amazing. And
but
are we allowed to know the title or?
yeah, the title is it's called Desolation Sound.
Oh, okay.
So the
Desolation
title track
Sound.
is Desolation Sound, and yeah, I could like maybe we'll do another podcast when the album comes out.
I know, right? We'll need an update because we're gonna have to talk about all the songs. But can you
Yeah.
briefly maybe give us like other? I know you have this really strong theme of like nature throughout
Mhm.
your music, even the titles of your albums are all related to nature in some way. So is it kind of following that trend? You're
Oh
staying
yeah.
on brand with that?
Oh yeah. It's
Yeah.
definitely music inspired by the natural world and by love and community and connection and family.
Hmm.
The 10th song is actually a song that my oldest daughter Amalia is singing on. So
Oh,
she's singing on the chorus of it, and it's just like an acoustic track that's kind of that we decided to end the album with. But so there's these special
oh,
kind of elements to it um, that and then there's the nature piece, and I mean the main track, Desolation Sound is, I mean, obviously Desolation Sound is up here in BC, and that song is kind of all about just kind of the eeriness of you know being out on the water in the morning and in the evenings and looking out up at the sky. And I have a good friend of mine did a sailing trip from, I don't even know where he was. He was in the middle. He was going out like Tahiti way, like way out there.
mm,
And he was describing, and this is what I mean by how sometimes songs gain meaning after they're written. But he was sharing this incredible story with me about how he was out there in the middle of the night and he was just like looking up at the stars, middle of the ocean, sailing, no lights anywhere, just the stars, no artificial light. And he felt this connection just like to the next realm, like almost like you could touch whatever that is up there. And he's not a religious person, it's like a spiritual thing. And he'd lost a family member when he was a parent when he was younger. And he was describing how it was like almost the closest he'd ever been with his parent. And it was like this in between. He was on the water in this boat, but you could almost touch whatever that next realm is. And that influenced the title track of the next album because it was
mm,
like, this is what this song is about. And I'd already written Desolation Sound, but Desolation Sound, I was like, this song is about being on a sailboat in the middle of the night, looking up at the stars and being like, there's all these people I miss. And there's all these places that I've been and like all these experiences that I've had and like paying homage to that. And I think the
mm,
album is kind of is that. It's like it's like life. It's
mm.
looking at all the elements of life and each song kind of represents that. So it's very on brand with Calico. Like it's very on brand with it's nature,
Yes,
but then it's all this existential shit, pardon my language.
right.
It's
No.
existential. It's like real deep stuff that you're like, man, we could talk about this for hours because this is life. This is the purpose of things. This is how we dissect our experiences and what's the meaning of life, what's the meaning of what we go through. And so like, yeah, we could talk about the album for a long time.
Wow. That's amazing. So basically that title track was inspired by that story from that you heard from your friend.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Desolation Sound? Like, do you have
No,
any connection to that place?
no,
No. Okay,
no,
interesting.
never been. Maybe I did once. Maybe I did a little kayaking, little like ocean kayaking there like 10 years ago, but like not enough of an experience to like be like, oh, this is super connected to me.
Okay.
But British Columbia is very connected to me, and the natural beauty of British Columbia is very connected to me. And Desolation Sound is like another one of those things that was like a song that I'd written, and then the kind of chorus was just like dang, Desolation Sound. Like, it was like the poem, and I'd probably seen something that was talking about Desolation Sound, or I was looking at a map and I saw Desolation Sound, and that's just how my brain works. And then it
Yeah.
just, when I was songwriting that day or that night or the next week, it was like, ooh, like Desolation Sound where no one's around, like, and it's just like, oh, there it is.
Mm.
There's a line that I'm gonna stick with, and then that turned into the title track, and the guitar of Desolation Sound. Also, I was just toying around with my guitar one day, and my oldest daughter Amalia, who also was the same one who was singing on the last track, she just started humming to what I was playing,
Mm.
and I have it recorded. It's quite cool. The guitar playing is off because I didn't know what I was playing quite yet, but she started humming, and what she was humming actually became how I sing Desolation Sound. The same kind of cadence of her voice is
Mm.
what I turned into how I sing the song, and
I
like
love
the
that.
lyrics that I put to the song. And I
That's
was
so
like, oh,
cool.
stop for a second. And she was just humming, and I was like, okay, you just gave me an idea.
Has she heard the song yet?
Um, Actually, good question. She has not heard that one. She's heard some of the other ones.
Does she
I
know
kind of
that she's like
No, I don't think
creatively contributed
no,
yet?
I don't think
Okay.
I don't even think we've watched the video, because there's this, like, she's filming it, and it's like I was like, hey, can you film me so I know where my hands are, and so she's filming me, and it's like this shaky video, but then you hear her in the background, humming, and then it's like, oh, there, and then I start singing to the humming, and it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, cool, I have proof of this, and I'll show it to her,
Yes.
and I should show it to her, and and I'll show it to her, as she gets older, and same with the song that she's on the album, which she's like very shy about, but I'm like, hey, you're gonna have this. There might be one day where you think this is cool. You're
Right.
singing with
Yeah.
your dad. Like, he
Yeah.
might think it's cool one day.
Yeah. Yeah. I was actually going to ask you, uh, that brings up the other question I was going to ask you about, like, what do your kids think of your music? Like, do they ask to put on daddy's music at all? Or, like, because kids are so honest, right? Like, I'm almost like
Yeah,
more scared to show Skyrus my songs because I know she'll be like, I don't like it. Like, I was like,
yeah. You're like, oh,
I
okay,
think I've even
sorry.
said to her, I'm like, you don't have to like it just because it's mommy's
Yeah,
song. Like,
I know. There's such a hilarity to how honest children are, because you're just
yeah.
like, okay, maybe you don't like Dad's music that much, but I my I would say the kids like my second daughter, Miana, is a big Calico fan. She's always
Yeah.
like, and she loves the song Ease. She's always
Okay.
like, and she'll say the one of the lines in it. She'll be like, "Daddy, Daddy, play like going on the back door," because there's a song where it's like Heaven's Gate on the back door, and
Yeah.
she always she'll say that. She doesn't. I've told her the name of the song a million times, but she just says back door. Like, Dad, can you play back door?
Oh
And
my
so
God.
she jams out to it. My older one and then the younger ones are too young, but they're like, Swifties, and it's probably not pop culture-y enough for them, because
Right.
it's like, oh, Dad writes this like introspective, like
Right. Yeah.
melancholy
Yeah.
music. It's like kind of dark,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, it's like folky singer-songwriter stuff. And I'm like, hey, we got some, there's like various songs at Calico. I'll show you some more rocky ones. What about this one? Nah. Like,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
like, okay.
I can totally see how Skyrus does not understand, like, obviously the music and, like,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, she's into like K-pop Demon Hunters and,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
That's the big one.
that's
Yeah.
like on repeat right now. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
um,
That'll be
but
on
one,
repeat for a long time too.
yeah, like one day she'll actually, I feel like when I have played the guitar at home, she'll ask me to play it, and I'm
Cool.
always just like, well, like
That's
that's
awesome.
cool.
That's cool.
She's like, mommy, she's like, or if I sing a song, she'll be like, again, can you sing
Nice.
it again? And I'm
Nice.
like, you're my biggest fan, yay!
Yes. That's awesome. That's awesome. It's
Yeah.
important to play for him. I feel like I don't do it enough, but like just pulling the guitar out while they're eating dinner or
Yes.
something, and I'm like, those are the times I think when I can get there, when I get them. It's like when they're sitting, which they rarely are because kids rarely sit, but like if there's a chance that they are doing art, which they love doing, and
Hmm.
then I can kind of finger pick and play, that's when they're tuned in, which is like what, which it makes sense. It's like
Yeah. I hear
that's
you
kind of
though.
the deal.
It's hard to find time to do it. Like I don't think I've played in front of her hardly enough. I
Yeah.
usually wait, when she's
So,
not around to do that. So I
yeah,
hear you on
totally.
that. I
Yeah.
also feel like sometimes she wants to like play with me, like which is
Mhm.
fine, but I'm also just like, yeah, but I kind of have to practice. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I'm like, I'll
So,
teach you another time. I have to practice
yeah.
this song.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So back to this new album. So we Will co-wrote a lot of the songs with you. So tell me about what that was like. Like how many songs did he uh, co-write?
We did four of the 10, four or five, but definitely four of the 10 Will and I wrote together.
Okay.
Um, and then we'd written more, like I was saying earlier, with like how we write. We'd written more that I think maybe we'll use for the next album. Like we'll say keep them in the folder and use them,
Yep.
for a later date. But and those songs, and it's all, I've always said this to Will, but like because Calico initially started with just like my songwriting, singer songwriter, kind of more folky,
Mm-hmm.
simpler guitar riffs. I'm not a super elaborate player, but then the songs we've written, I actually don't play on guitar. When the songs we write together, I just sing, and he writes the guitar parts for him. So he'll bring them forward, and it's such a fun, different way of songwriting. Like he
Mm-hmm.
come and very, very much on the spot, and see what we create, and so we wrote four like super super cool songs that I think you will dig. that
Absolutely.
I think you'll dig them. That are
Yeah.
just like it's very Will. For those of you that don't know William Jr. Lloyd, he's just an incredibly gifted guitar player, and has a very unique mind when it comes to guitar, and just has an ability to, I think, I talk about putting my emotion towards lyrics and words. Will has a way of doing that with guitar,
Yes.
where he, can kind of just take out whatever's within, and it comes out in very beautiful, intricate, you know, incredible playing. And
Yes.
so I always, considered myself lucky playing all with all the guys that are in the band. I mean, Chris, John Say, Will, those dudes are, as good as they come in
Mm-hmm.
terms
Oh yeah.
of
Your band is
players.
stacked. You have a
They're
stacked band.
they're stacked, and like, when I first came up, I was like, how am I playing with these dudes? I was just like, so, I had the least experience, but I'm the one singing, and I was just like, here we go. These dudes are so intimidating, but I mean, they're brothers of mine, so it was, but when we playing, I was like, they're so good.
Yeah.
Like, don't mess up.
Yeah.
But I messed up so many times. Sorry,
Yeah.
guys.
Ah,
But
cool.
yeah, he came out to the island, and like I'd mentioned earlier, and we did that one very just great songwriting session for that day, and got a lot of great ideas, and I swear if we lived closer, like if I lived closer to these dudes, we'd probably have 10 albums out now. It's just like, um but it's the way that the project is, and
Yep.
how it's been, but yeah, songwriting with Will is is a cool thing, because it's cool to be able to see someone kind of manipulate the guitar like that, on the spot.
Mm-hmm. And what about Chris? Like, did you guys, I noticed that as the albums progress, there's new like drum rhythms that are really cool, and like percussive elements. Like, was there anything new that got added into this album? Like, did you bring any new elements from his end for this
He
album?
Definitely. He used some weird, I know he used goat nails at one point,
Oh,
create this like weird kind of shaky sound. That might be in Desolation Sound because it's kind of an eerie track.
right.
But yeah, it's definitely more of an exploration, I'd say. Like, I mean, there's not a ton of like random stuff because part of the vision of the album was like we want to be able to play this live.
Oh,
So,
okay.
we want to be able to turn that recorded sound into a sound that we can emulate on a stage, fairly easily. It's not
Right.
meant to be overly produced. It's produced, but it's not meant to be overly produced with sounds that we just would not be able to bring on. So for the most part, I mean, there's keys on two tracks, but the entire album is really just and light keys on one of them. So really, there's prominent keys on one song. The rest is just the four of us.
Okay.
Um,
Who's playing
so
the
that
keys?
Tom Huikendorf,
Oh,
who is he plays around town too.
yeah.
Great keys player, great singer,
Oh,
and so like
cool.
we're Huikendorf. I always get the Huikendorf. I get the
Okay.
last name wrong. Um, and but he'll be playing some live shows with us
Nice.
this year, which would be cool. So like, and he
Nice.
sings, got a great voice.
So we can do
Um,
harmonies and stuff.
does harmonies and so that'll be cool. Bring
Nice.
bring some keys into the sound and um,
What about
so yeah.
vocalists? Any vocalists
We
on the?
we don't have any like backup singers. We just have like me, Chris, and then Tom, who were like has never actually sung with us. He played one show at Blue Light Studios with us, but didn't sing on that. So it's like up until now, it's just been me and Chris, which
Okay.
um, which will be great to kind of add to just to elevate the harmonies and just make the sound a little bit, you know, more well-rounded, I think, from a vocal standpoint.
Yeah. Absolutely. Amazing. Well, I'm so excited to hear this album, and I know you also have some exciting things that are happening, some opportunities that are arising for you and the band as well, which is amazing. Congratulations. And I know you
Thank
can't
you.
talk about it yet, but I'm
Thank you.
excited for you. I'm so excited for your guys' success because I feel like that's already here in so many ways. I definitely see it.
Thank you.
Um, and I'm just like super proud of you guys. You
Thank
know,
you.
like
Yeah, me,
when I was
me as
listening
well.
through the album, I was like, I'm just like so proud of them. Like these are people I know and like have shared heart space with and time, like, so much time with. And I'm just so proud of you guys for everything you've done. And I'm just so grateful to, have a continued connection to all of you in a certain way. So, um, the other question I want to ask you as we kind of wrap things up is it's interesting that you had alluded to it a little bit at the beginning of the interview, but do you see yourself as an artist now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I definitely, I've like allowed myself to, I don't know, it's a bad analogy, but I have two moms and they would have always said this, but I've allowed myself to come out of the closet, kind of, so to speak, of that.
Okay.
Um,
And was there like, can you speak on that a little bit? Like, was there kind of like, can you think of when you kind of stepped into that? Was there like a moment or was it just kind of like a gradual kind of becoming?
yeah, I think it just kind of happened over time where I was like, I can't. I lived a lot of my like last even several years doing this project, almost like not intentionally hiding it, but like I didn't talk about it. And my life out here was not, people didn't know I played music still. People in Vancouver knew I played, or we play some festivals even. We were starting to get booked. you
Mm-hmm.
know, to play some shows. And, most of those have been festivals over the summers that we've played. Not a ton, but we're still playing festivals. And I just didn't talk about it that much here. I didn't feel comfortable with people's reactions. I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, I think I always felt like I had to like explain. I don't know. There's so many people out there that are like, "Oh, just another musician." Like you're an artist too. And I would get those reactions. I remember like playing a song for my old manager at one of my jobs, and he was a songwriter from back east. Great songwriter, been nominated for some East Coast Music Awards, and and I remember being like, "Hey man, I play music. I play music."
Yeah.
and and he just kind of like, and he told me this afterwards and I appreciated it, but and this was the reaction that I got a lot of times from people. It's like, yeah, you play music, like okay,
Yeah.
like you write songs, okay, and
Right.
and then I brought my guitar one day, or there was a guitar at work, and we were kind of just a couple people shared a song, and then I shared a song of mine. I don't remember which one it was. And I remember looking at him while I was playing at one point, and he was just sitting there like staring at me. And I was like, I remember thinking like, in a weird way, it was like validation. I was like, okay, now he's like listening to me. And then afterwards, he was like, yeah, so, like that was a song. And I remember just being like, well, dude, I told you I wrote songs. Like I told you that. I said that to you. I told you I was a musician. But
Right.
those were the experiences that you know, and I think probably it's self-defense, I think it was protective. I was probably trying to protect myself from
Mm-hmm.
those experiences and reactions. And so to go back to your question, I think it was gradual. I don't think there was like an
Yeah.
exact moment in time it came out, but I think I just came to this point where I was like, this is who I am. Wherever we take Calico and whatever happens to the project and to the music will happen. Like I have no control over that. I don't know what'll happen. I hope, we can continue to share our music with many, many more people than we've been able to so far. That's a huge goal. But I am an artist now, and I feel like it's part of my identity that I am, you know, comfortable in sharing. And that took a long time to get to for me.
Yeah.
It took a long time for me to be like, you know, and I don't mean to, when I said coming out, you know, I have my moms are gay, and I was raised with two moms, and so that was an expression that was used a lot growing up, and a lot I was raised in the San Francisco Bay Area by the gay and lesbian community, and so that was kind of how in my own lived experience it felt to me as someone who was raised in that community and
Mm.
who heard all these stories from my
Mm.
family members of when they came out,
Mm.
and I in my head and in my heart always kind of like I was sheltering and kind of closeted about this person that I was, and for me
Mm-hmm.
that was being a musician that I never really allowed myself to be, and I think there's a sadness to that too, because I spent a lot of years wanting to share that and not doing it. And I think like when I do talk to people now, or if I have the opportunity to be on a panel or be on a podcast, which I've done some other ones, or talking at festivals, it's like that's something that's so important for me when I have the ability to share it. And this is a platform, when you're an artist, it's like, it's hard, but be yourself, and allow yourself to be yourself. And it took me a long time to be that and to feel comfortable and confident calling myself an artist. So it's a great question, but like it took me, and honestly, I'm still, you know, discovering what that is and what that looks like, and how being an artist and being a musician is going to look in my life and what that means. And I have goals and I have aspirations, and I want it to be more and bigger than it is right now. But at the core, I am like, now I'm an artist, like now I'm living the life that I kind of had dreamed about 15, 20 years ago when I was going to those shows with Chris Kudo in Vancouver, watching all these other artists be artists. And musicians be cool on stage, and now I can be like, okay, I have this like breadth, this body of work now that I can be like, look, that's why it was so important to me to write so much music and release so much music, because I could be like, look, this is like what I've written. And I have a lyric book that we made for the first three albums. I'll
Yes,
send you a copy of that.
please.
Um, so yeah, I mean that it's a special. I feel like it's a special place to be, and it's special to my heart, and being an artist is something you should never like hide either. It's not something. It's not something you're meant to hide, much like you know any other part of you. Like that's we're meant to be who we are, and feel comfortable in that. And it's hard to do that, obviously, in our own journeys, like whatever it is, people, experience challenges, and really allowing themselves to be themselves. And so it's like, I always love being around people like yourself, and Steph and Will and all these friends of mine that are like so authentically themselves in whatever,
Mm.
just in whatever way that is. Chris
Hmm.
Kudo. It's like these people are just themselves. And it's like there's nothing more beautiful than a person being them. If it's good, obviously.
Yeah,
There's bad people
yeah,
out there, but like
yeah.
if it's good
No.
and you feel it in a good way, there's nothing more precious about that.
Yes. Yes, I love that. And yeah, there's always like a sense of imposter syndrome that I think everyone kind of goes through. And
Yeah.
yeah, it takes work to embody being an artist and what that really means to stand up on a stage and open your heart to everybody in the room and get yourself out of the way to
Yeah.
create an experience that isn't about you.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, it's about your having fun and enjoying yourself, and you're sharing this part of your soul, I guess you could say. um but also, like, you're there for the audience too, right? Like,
Totally.
it's like you're
Totally.
being of service to them. And I feel like I'm trying to switch more into that mindset, because if I because what's happening in here sometimes, I'm just like, oh, fuck that, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Totally.
like, like,
Totally.
that's just getting annoying now. Like, let's
Yeah.
just move on. Like, I want to go do a show and just like create this experience for
Yeah.
everybody, and it be an embodied one for myself as well. And I'm not
Yeah.
hiding anything, and I can be myself. And yeah, that's a journey, like, and
Yeah.
I think
Totally.
that's that's a journey, the artist journey.
Totally. Totally. And it's a process, and it's
Yeah.
not meant to be quick or fast, and that's another thing, is like it takes time, and it takes time for good things to unravel.
Yes.
And that's a part of life, and it's a part of definitely my experience with this process and this project, that like,
Hmm.
you know, I had expectations. I learned to lower them, and like be comfortable with where we're at and where I'm at, and take one day at a time, and keep putting the good foot forward, and keep putting yourself out there, and keep applying to as many things as you can, and just not giving up and being persistent. And over time, I think persistence wins. Persistence will result in someone seeing you or hearing you or listening to you at the right time, and like
Yeah.
specific to art, to this form of artistry. And like, if you're putting a good product out there, like it's meant to be heard. And so that's but that's a process,
Yeah. For sure.
obviously. But
For sure.
thanks for bringing me on, and thank you for creating this awesome space to
Yeah.
talk, and a community. And thanks for building a community, within and from this podcast, because it's awesome. It's special for us artists to be part of it. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Thank you. I have one last question.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
How did you guys come up with, because you mentioned a name that you guys had before, the new millennials.
Oh
How did
yeah.
you
Yeah, the new millennials is a
So
bad name. Sorry, but
I know it is.
this is like I was like
So
bad
Calico,
name.
how did we land at Calico, and what does
Calico,
that
there
mean?
is a name. There's a song name. Uh, one of the songs from the second album is called "Rolling Hills," and initially we changed the song name. It was "Rolling Hills" and "Calico Fame," and on the album it's just Rolling Hills, but when I wrote it, it was Calico Fame, Rolling Hills and Calico Fame, and I wrote it, I don't know, 15 years ago. I was on a bike trip coming back from Penticton, and it was like the sun was setting and the rolling hills, and it was just so beautiful. And I was like, I was in a songwriting class in Vancouver at the time that my friend Michael Averill was running, and you would write us, you know, Michael?
Yes,
Yeah,
he's helped me out so much
one of
over the
my favorite
years.
people in the
Yeah,
world, by the
yeah,
way.
yeah.
Shout out to Mike if he's
Yes.
listening. But he was running these songwriting workshops, song a week. That's a whole nother story, but I didn't really play guitar that much back then. And he was like, the first one I went to, and he was like, okay, I'll play guitar to this. The second week, he was like, you know, a few chords, you're writing your own songs. So I knew a few chords, and I was coming back from this bike trip, and I wrote this song, Rolling Hills and Calico Fame, which is funny and ironic because that song is the song that's like been the most played song that Calico has. I have no idea how or why, but for some reason it has the most plays on Spotify. Um, and when we were talking about the name of the band, we were looking through the songs, and I was specifically dissecting some of the songs, and we were like, can't be Calico Fame. It's way too pretentious, like can't
Right.
Calico Fame. What the hell does that even mean? But then we were like, what about Calico? And there were some other Calicos out there. We tried to take their Instagram handles because like they were Calicos 25, 15 years ago, and the bands were, no longer a thing. And so we made it uppercase Calico to make it unique. Um, but it came from song, and it came from like that specific, you know, beautiful interaction with the natural world, which is so Calico, and
Yeah.
so what the music is based on. But
Hmm.
um,
Is that
and
but that song's on the is that's on the second album though, right?
that's the
So
second album.
so
Yeah,
what did you how did you
record it.
oh, yeah, I guess you had already written that song like
Oh yeah, I wrote that
before
one
you
like
released it.
yeah, I
Okay,
wrote that
gotcha.
song a long, long time ago. That was one
Okay.
of the kind of 15 or whatever 16 songs I brought
Oh,
forward. And it was originally called Rolling Hills and Calico Fame, and
okay.
we just cut it short to Rolling Hills. Um, but those Rolling Hills looked like, a calico cat to me.
Mm,
And it was like late summer, dry, and maybe it gotten a rain, so you had just kind of all these splotches of coloration that a calico, the calico coat would have. And so and I'm not even like a huge cat person, so it's not like it's not an ode to the cat, but
yeah.
it is a connection with you know with nature, and which is a
Cool.
deeply important thing to me. But yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
Cool. Well, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and we are all going to be looking out for this album that you're going to be coming out with. So when does the first single come out?
June or July,
Okay,
we should be dropping one of the first ones, and I'll
cool.
let you know
Okay,
when we have a date, and we've figured that out. But then the next like 2 to 3 months we should be starting to release.
great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and it's been so nice to
Yeah.
connect. And when you guys do a show, I'm definitely going to come and
Yeah.
soak in the
Well, we're
vibes.
playing Harmony Arts on August 8th. So if you're
Oh, okay.
if you're if you're in if you're in Vancouver, and I think we might be playing Castellano this year too. So
Oh,
um,
nice. Good for
I'll send you the
you.
dates
Oh, that's
separately, but
awesome.
Harmony Arts is confirmed, and that's we're playing on August 8th. But I'll
Nice.
I'll send some dates, and you should come out for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, awesome. Well, have a good
Cool.
night.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the great questions and having me on. It was an honor to chat with you. I appreciate
Yes. Yes.
appreciate
This
it.
was so fun.